You know that feeling when a long-held belief about yourself just gets a sudden, unexpected crack?
Hmm.
Like you get a glimpse into a room you didn't even know existed inside you?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of the territory we're exploring today. We're taking a deeper look at um, reconciling with our inner child.
Right.
And this was sparked by some really thought-provoking articles and notes to you, the listener, shared.
Yeah, some great starting points.
So get ready to maybe connect some dots in surprising ways.
Definitely. This deep dive is really about understanding and integrating all those different facets of ourselves.
Especially the ones we kind of push aside.
Exactly. The ones we might have learned to sideline.
Hmm.
So our mission, if you like, is to sift through this material you sent
Okay.
and pull out the key insights on how we can acknowledge, accept, and, well, potentially heal these parts that are often hidden away.
Sounds good.
We'll be navigating, the personas we present, those unexpected moments of self-revelation,
Uh-huh.
and really the foundational power of acceptance.
Okay, so let's dive right into that first idea then, the social mask.
Yeah.
The sources you sent, they really touched on how we all develop these, like, outward-facing identities.
Mm-hmm. It's necessary to some extent.
Right, it's almost like we're curating a version of ourselves for the world.
We are.
But sometimes that curated version can feel pretty distant from, who we truly are underneath it all.
Indeed. And one of the articles specifically talked about the shadow,
Ah,
drawing from, psychological theories that describe it as the collection of traits and impulses we tend to repress.
or deny.
Or deny, exactly, to gain social acceptance, basically.
And it's not always bad stuff, is it?
No, not necessarily bad things at all. It could just be aspects we think are unacceptable or maybe too vulnerable to show.
Which really resonates. I mean, especially if you're in a more public-facing role.
Oh, for sure.
There can be this unspoken pressure to embody a certain image, almost like being placed on a pedestal.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And I've definitely had moments where I felt almost idealized, sanctified even.
Mm-hmm.
Yet
Yeah.
the reality is everyone, regardless of how they seem on the outside, has those unacknowledged,
Corners, dark corners, yeah.
those personal challenges they're working through, and
Well,
still got work to do.
and as the sources sort of implicitly suggest, this gap, this
Yeah.
difference between our presented self and our inner reality,
Yeah,
well, it can lead to internal friction, serious friction sometimes.
right.
It really begs the question, how aware are we really of the energy we spend maintaining these masks?
Good question.
And what happens when those hidden aspects inevitably, surface? Because they do.
Yeah, they definitely do. And here's where it gets really interesting. And I think this will really click for you, listener, given some of the themes about self-awareness in the material you shared.
So,
Sometimes it's the most mundane situations, the smallest things that can trigger these huge revelations.
uh-huh.
So I was pursuing this long-time goal, learning to paint, feeling really good, in the zone,
Right.
and then get this a sepal paint pot, like the lid was stuck or
Oh,
something,
dear.
caused this surge of intense frustration, just completely disproportionate, almost childish, really.
Wow. And what's revealing about that, and it totally aligns with some of the discussions around emotional regulation in your sources,
Yeah.
is how it highlights that even when we think we've achieved a certain level of, say, self-acceptance or calm,
Uh-huh.
these deeper, maybe less adult reactions can still be very much present
Yeah.
right there under the surface.
Absolutely.
It points to a potential blind spot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A hidden resistance, perhaps, to things not unfolding exactly as we planned or envisioned.
Exactly. And it made me think about how we constantly shift between different roles all day,
All the time.
1 minute you're deep in concentration, the next you're trying to collaborate with a team, and that transition, it isn't always smooth.
No, it really isn't.
And I'd always kind of prided myself on being adaptable, flexible, but that paint pot moment showed me this rigidity I hadn't fully acknowledged I had.
Interesting.
And there were moments in that whole creative process where I felt, well, stripped back, more ordinary, even a bit awkward or, dare I say, ugly sometimes.
Mm.
But strangely, there was a sense of authenticity in that vulnerability. Like, okay, this is also me.
Right. Connecting this back to some of the insights in your material about motivation,
Yeah.
it suggests that even our seemingly selfless intentions, like wanting students to learn,
Uh-huh, which feels purely good.
exactly,
Yeah.
but it might still have undercurrents we haven't fully examined.
Mhm.
Maybe a need for validation or even a subtle desire for control over how they learn.
Oof. Yeah, okay, so if we're bumping up against these, like, hidden parts of ourselves,
Mm,
what's the first move?
good question.
The sources you shared, they really seem to emphasize the critical role of acceptance.
Absolutely key.
Because if we can't even acknowledge it's there, we're just in a constant state of internal battle, right? Wasting energy.
Precisely. One of the articles specifically stated that resistance to what is only perpetuates suffering. It keeps you stuck.
Right.
Until we can accept these less palatable aspects of ourselves,
Yeah.
the jealousy, the frustration, the insecurity,
Yeah.
we stay locked in that cycle of denial and internal conflict, which, as another source pointed out, is incredibly draining, energetically just depleting.
Oh, I can definitely relate to that. There have been times I've really wrestled with feelings like envy, or moments of serious self-doubt in my career.
Most of us have.
And it really does feel like falling into a hole, as one of your sources vividly put it.
Yeah.
This sudden drop into negativity, and it feels deep.
And this prompts a crucial question, one that several of your sources implicitly raise.
What's that?
Why do we inherently categorize certain emotions as bad or negative in the first place?
Good point.
What societal programming or maybe personal experiences have led us to judge ourselves so harshly for just experiencing the full spectrum of human emotions? Anger, sadness, fear.
Yeah, why are they bad?
It's a significant point for self-reflection, isn't it?
Definitely. And okay, as we start to maybe tentatively confront these less comfortable aspects, the need for something else your sources touched on becomes really clear. Solitude. Time alone.
Yes. Very important.
Because when those feelings bubble up, the immediate impulse can be to find a distraction, right? Call a friend, turn on the TV, anything.
Anything to avoid just sitting with the discomfort.
Exactly.
And as one of your sources astutely noted, true self-acceptance requires a certain inner resilience, kind of stability, as they put it.
Stability.
Yeah, a stability that allows us to be present with that discomfort without immediately needing to escape it or fix it.
Okay.
It's really in those moments of quiet introspection, just being with it,
Yeah.
that we can begin to understand and integrate these parts of ourselves.
I've personally found that intentionally creating a pause, just a beat, before reacting to inner turmoil can be incredibly helpful.
How so?
It just gives me a little breathing room, to observe what's actually happening inside without immediately jumping to judgment or trying to fix it. Just notice.
That act of creating space, which was highlighted in several of your sources on mindfulness, that's key. It shifts us from being purely reactive
Right.
to being more responsive. It allows for a more thoughtful and ultimately accepting approach to our inner experiences.
Okay, responsiveness over reactivity. I like that. There was actually a really powerful moment for me recently
Right?
where I simply admitted my limitations to my students in front of everyone.
Wow, that takes courage.
It did feel like it. I basically just said, look, I've reached a point where I actually need your input, your help on this.
And I bet, as your sources on vulnerability likely underscored, there's a surprising strength in that.
There was.
And a sense of liberation that comes with that kind of honesty.
Totally.
Admitting limitations isn't some kind of deficiency, is it? It can actually foster deeper connection
It really did.
and create space for, like, collaborative growth.
Yeah.
Everyone chipping in.
It absolutely felt like that. It felt like by acknowledging where I fell short, I was opening myself up to new possibilities, allowing for a different kind of energy to flow in.
That aligns perfectly with the idea, which was present in several of your readings on self-compassion, that accepting ourselves, including our perceived flaws and limitations, is actually a fundamental act of self-love. It's about releasing that constant pressure of self-criticism, letting go of the judgment.
It's almost like the resistance itself, the fighting against it, takes up so much energy.
It does.
One of the articles you shared mentioned how the body can almost immediately begin to regenerate energy once exhaustion is simply acknowledged.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, it's like the fight just ends and your body goes, okay, now we can recover.
Precisely. That internal struggle against ourselves, against reality, is incredibly taxing. Acceptance allows that energy to be redirected towards healing, understanding, growth, towards something more constructive.
This reminds me of the analogy in that book, the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse,
Oh, yes. Beautiful book.
which I know resonated with you too. The boy searches for home as like a physical place.
Right, a destination.
But ultimately finds it in the connection and the acceptance he shares with his companions on the journey.
that narrative, and it connects to your sources on belonging and identity. It beautifully illustrates that the feeling of home often isn't a fixed destination at all.
It's more internal.
Yes. It's more the inner sense of peace and connection we cultivate within ourselves and through our relationships by accepting ourselves fully right where we are along the way.
And some of the material you shared also touched on the importance of navigating the difficult times, those moments of falling into a hole after setbacks or failures.
Yes, the soul.
It's never pleasant in the moment, obviously.
Not at all. However, as one of your sources on resilience pointed out, it's often in those low points, those very holes,
Yeah.
that we have the opportunity for the deepest self-reflection and reconnection.
Really? How so?
It's when our usual defenses are down, you know, when we feel weak or lost. That's when we can truly acknowledge our vulnerabilities.
Okay.
And sometimes, surprisingly, discover hidden strengths we didn't know we had.
Finding strength in vulnerability. So, okay, on a practical level, how do we cultivate this acceptance day to day?
Right, the practice.
Your sources really emphasize the significance of just being present with ourselves.
Yes, it's about intentionally creating those moments. They don't have to be long.
Like what?
Well, they could be structured rituals, maybe a quiet morning routine with some tea looking out the window, or simply pausing for a few conscious breaths throughout the day. Just checking in.
Checking in.
Yeah, connecting with your inner state without judgment. That's the key part. It's about just noticing what's there. Is it calm? Is it turbulent?
And there was that 4-part process outlined in one of the readings: recognize, accept, investigate, and non-identification.
That's right. RAIN, sometimes called.
We've touched on recognize and accept. Let's delve a little deeper into investigate and non-identification.
Okay, so investigating, as described in one source on emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
It involves gently exploring the origins and triggers of our difficult emotions. Not like an interrogation, more like curiosity.
Okay, so for example, with my paint pot frustration.
Exactly. Instead of just reacting or judging yourself for being frustrated, you might gently ask yourself, what specific expectation was unmet just then? Or what past experiences might this feeling be connected to? Just gently probing.
Okay, curiosity, not judgment.
Precisely. And then non-identification, building on that,
Yeah.
is about recognizing that the emotion or thought is something you are experiencing, it's passing through.
Right.
It's not something that defines who you fundamentally are.
That distinction between I am angry and I am experiencing anger.
Exactly. It's so crucial.
But so easy to forget in the heat of the moment, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It takes practice. And one of your sources used a really powerful metaphor for this non-identification.
Oh, was it?
Imagine yourself as the owner of a house.
Okay.
And your thoughts and feelings are like guests coming and going. Some are pleasant, some are difficult. You observe them. You acknowledge their presence. Anger was visiting today. But you don't become the guest. You don't merge with them.
You remain the owner.
You remain the constant presence, the observer, the house itself.
So the key is really to just observe without immediately trying to analyze it all or fix it. Just let it be there for a moment.
Precisely. By not feeling those negative states with resistance or judgment or frantic analysis, they naturally begin to lose their power. They dissipate. One of your sources even cited research suggesting that emotions, if we don't amplify them with our thoughts about them, actually have a relatively short physiological lifespan. Maybe 90 seconds, maybe up to 15 minutes, depending on the research.
Wow, really? That short?
If we don't keep feeding them with stories and judgments.
That's actually a really helpful perspective, that these intense feelings are, in essence, temporary visitors.
Yes, if we allow them to be.
It also underlines the importance of recognizing when we do need to step back.
How do you mean?
Like, step back from external demands or conversations to just attend to our internal state.
Absolutely.
Not just for our own well-being, but also for our interactions with others, right? So we don't dump our stuff on them.
Exactly. That self-awareness and the ability to establish those boundaries when needed, that's integral to maintaining healthy relationships.
Starting with the one we have with ourselves.
Starting right there, as several of your sources emphasized.
Okay, now let's circle back specifically to this idea of reconciliation with the inner child. It sounds like it's definitely not a one-time event, is it? Like, okay, I've done that.
Oh, no, not at all. Drawing from the ideas in your material about inner work, it suggests initiating a kind of conscious reconnection with that younger part of yourself. Maybe literally picturing yourself as a child, acknowledging any past hurts or unmet needs they might still carry, offering a sense of understanding, and maybe even care now. It's about showing up in the present for that part of you that might still be stuck carrying those old experiences.
I like the idea you mentioned from a source, almost like having a formal meeting.
Yeah, it brings an intentionality to it, doesn't it?
It does. And the suggestion about regular check-ins throughout the day,
Yeah.
even during routine stuff.
Yes. Like when you're washing dishes or waiting for the kettle to boil, just a quick internal, hey, how you doing there?
Okay.
Those brief moments of checking in create a consistent thread of connection. It builds trust with that part of yourself.
Right.
And as one of your sources humorously illustrated with that personal anecdote, checking in while listening to music and getting this lighthearted response back,
Yeah, I remember that.
it shows this internal dialogue can be surprisingly dynamic. It doesn't have to be heavy all the time. It can even be joyful or playful.
That really highlights the personal nature of this journey. It's not a formula.
Not at all.
And also, the importance of noticing when that inner child or those darker aspects actually aren't dominant.
Yes. Celebrating the moments of peace.
Right. Acknowledging, hey, things feel pretty good right now. Reinforcing that positive state.
Exactly. By regularly tuning in, both to the difficult stuff and the good stuff, we build what one of your sources described as momentum.
Momentum
Towards our center, towards our true home, you could say. It increases the likelihood of residing in that more authentic and peaceful inner space.
It all seems to come back to the basic principles of healthy relationships, doesn't it?
It really does.
Even the one we have with ourselves. The sources you shared drew that great parallel between good friendships, which are often characterized by, a lack of rigid expectations
Right.
and a consistent investment of time and attention.
Yeah, showing up.
And nurturing our relationship with our inner child, or just our inner selves in general.
That's a powerful parallel.
Sure.
Because unmet expectations are such a huge source of conflict in any relationship.
Definitely.
And that certainly includes the expectations we place upon ourselves, those shoulds and musts.
Oh, yeah, the internal tyrant.
Right. By releasing those rigid self-demands, we create so much more space for self-compassion and genuine acceptance.
So as we kind of bring this deep dive to a close, the core insights seem to really revolve around the necessity of recognizing and embracing all facets of ourselves, even the uncomfortable, messy ones we'd rather ignore.
Yes, the whole package.
And the transformative power of present moment awareness, but crucially, without judgment.
That non-judgmental presence, yeah.
And finally, understanding that this journey of inner reconciliation, it's a continuous process. It's about tending to our inner landscape day by day.
An ongoing practice, not a destination.
Exactly. And for you, the listener, maybe just consider for a moment, what unspoken expectations might you be holding on to about yourself right now?
Good question.
And maybe what's just one gentle act of self-acceptance you could offer yourself in this moment or later today?
Little kindness.
Speaking of inner landscapes and awareness, our next deep dive will actually explore the topic of attentiveness and mindfulness more broadly.
Oh, perfect.
Which feels like a really natural progression from this discussion on being present with ourselves, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It ties right in.
We'll be looking at how focused awareness can further cultivate that inner peace and understanding we've been talking about.
Sounds fascinating. Well, thank you for engaging in this exploration with us today.
Yeah, thanks for diving deep with us.